Hello, my name is Adnan. I chose to do my community resource on Overeaters Anonymous. I picked this resource before learning more about the mechanisms of eating disorders and the larger fat phobic cultural narrative. However, this is a relatively well-known resource. It's a 12-step program and is at least worth learning about a little bit just because it is kind of well-known. So it's founded in 1960 by a member of Gamblers Anonymous. So it is quite old. AA's been, and it's adapted from the AA book or Alcoholics Anonymous, which is from the 1930s. So each group is its own entity. So like there's not really like it's kind of like a like anarcho-syndicalism thing going on where each group is independent from the larger whole. There are like intergroup and national service boards, but like one group could have a particular culture or one meeting could have a particular culture that's completely different than another meeting, which could be cause some problems because one group could be really helpful and another group not so helpful. So if you were to go to a meeting, there's no experts there. It's basically a secretary who basically reads the preamble, and then each person shares independently, meaning that if someone shares, you're not supposed to do crosstalk, meaning you're not supposed to talk about something they said. There's or like give them advice or anything like that. So there's 6,500 OA groups. So it's relatively a big fellowship in 75 countries. So it's primarily for somebody who believes they have a binge eating disorder. It does welcome people who suffer from bulimia or anorexia, but there are other 12-step fellowships for that. So the preamble is read at the beginning of every meeting. So it says, we of Overeaters Anonymous have found in the fellowship a way to recover from the disease of compulsive overeating. In OA, we have no program of diets and exercises, no scales, no magic pills. What we do offer is far greater than any of these, a fellowship in which we find and share the healing power of love. So what is abstinence in OA? Obviously, 12-step programs are abstinence-based programs for substance use. So this is where it gets kind of hairy, and there's a lot of fat phobic narratives in this. So it's the act of refraining from compulsive eating and compulsive food behaviors while also working towards and maintaining a healthy body weight. So we got both, healthy body weight, healthy weight. So that's like, right? That's not good, right? So, there's some fat phobic, rhetoric in here. But it's and then also you're supposed to identify a trigger food that creates like a compulsion or binge eating, and then also develop a plan of eating which is supposed to be different than a diet, but obviously that could also cause some problems. So the 12 steps of Overeaters Anonymous. So the first step, we admitted we were powerless over food, that our lives have become unmanageable. And one of the criteria for a binge eating disorder is this feeling of loss of control. And, that could feel like powerlessness. Then the second step is about, so this first step, the primary spiritual principles of this are, acceptance and also honesty. And this powerlessness idea basically just enables the person to ask for help rather than like trying to grapple, control it by themselves. Like I can't fix this. I need something. I need some help here. The second step's about hope. That's the spiritual principle. Just is there a way out of this? Is there a vision for me to get out of here? Third step, the spiritual principle is commitment. So the first three steps of 12-step programs actually have a lot in common with acceptance and commitment therapy. And I just noticed that because in the third step, you could use your values as a higher power. So it is an older book that uses the God word, but there is room for different types of higher powers. The fourth step is about looking at your past patterns, writing down like all your fears, resentments, and looking kind of like those like unconscious mechanisms of behavior. 6 and 7 is where it kind of uses a narrative therapy where you externalize things about yourself that you want to work on. Um, and so you can work on it from a different perspective, like outside yourself a little bit. And then there's the rest of the steps, and then there's step 12. So 12-step programs are very service-based. You basically, it's to get out of self, right? That's one of the main mechanisms is you take someone through the 12 steps, and then you take someone through you go through the 12 steps, and then you take someone through the 12 steps. Just real fast, some overlap between SUD criteria and binge eating disorder. So yeah, loss of control and also like cravings, urges. Once again, so it's against OA tradition 10 to offer someone else a food plan. So you're supposed to develop your food plan with some sort of kind of experts or just by yourself. You're not supposed to give advice of what to do for that. There was this gray book in the 1960s to the 80s that was discontinued. So tools in OA. So you develop a plan for eating, which is like a schedule that you avoid people, places, and things that you feel like are going to create a loss of control or binge. A sponsor is just someone who takes you through the 12 steps, or you can call to redirect yourself. So it's a peer support group. So you call your sponsor to redirect yourself and kind of like think it out before you do something you don't want to do. Go to 90 meetings in 90 days. So lots of writing, like self-reflection, and also obviously service. So how to start an OA. There's an OA screener on the website that asks some questions about whether or not you feel like you have a binge eating disorder. So there's seattleoa.org. There's also oa.org if you don't live in the Seattle area. So you would go to a meeting, get a phone list, get a sponsor. You would ideally call someone off the phone list every day, or can go to 90 meetings in 90 days. Find a service position, work the 12 steps. So lots of problems in OA though. There's like a lot of fat phobic rhetoric. So there is this tension between healthy body weight, but and then also compulsion. So 12 steps are for like designed for more compulsions, not really like healthy body weight, which could get really scary really fast probably. So yeah, larger fat phobic narrative, moralizing food. So also there's the potential to develop an eating disorder. There's high levels of internalized weight bias, which may cause someone to prioritize weight loss over other recovery matters. So it's based on the AA book, which was developed in the 1930s by straight white men. So this may not connect with females with eating disorders. There is some, it's developed for straight white men in the 1930s. So obviously this idea of the higher power could, people may not relate to that. There is the potential to reinforce guilt and shame around eating, because if you relapse, that kind of thing. It's not evidence-based. Mostly, I mean, it's hard to do empirical research on 12-step groups in general, just because there's outside of a treatment center, just because of anonymity. And it's just hard to do that kind of research. There was some accounts of inpatient facilities using OA to some success in like Spain and Israel and some other places. Some benefits of OA. So it reduces isolation. It uses a Jungian approach, which, it's kind of interesting. Like the founder of AA they wrote back and forth with Carl Jung. It was heavily influenced by Carl Jung. So it can be integrated into different treatment modalities, probably not as a main event, but it could offer peer support if to somebody who maybe is already familiar with the 12-step group. Like I said, they use the AA book, so they're talking about alcohol in a meeting designed for binge eating, so that could be a little confusing. So you would go to the seattleoa.org. So I actually went to a meeting. There was about 15 people there. So it was pretty big. Also on Seattle OA, there are numbers actually like under each meeting that you can call before you go if you're feeling nervous or you want some support right off the bat. Or if you don't live in the Seattle area, there's oa.org. So obviously this is a more controversial resource, but I feel like it should open up some interesting discussion about fat phobia. Or is this a resource that could be useful? Want your thoughts? Thank you.